The US launched a drone strike against an Islamic State attack planner in eastern Afghanistan, the military said on Friday. It comes after a suicide bombing on Thursday at the gates of the Kabul airport, claimed by the Islamic State. That attack killed 13 US troops and scores of Afghan civilians. In response, US President Joe Biden ordered the Pentagon to come up with plans to strike at the perpetrators. The strike took place in Nangarhar province, east of Kabul and bordering Pakistan. A US military statement said, quote, "Initial indications are that we killed the target. We know of no civilian casualties." It did not say whether the target was connected with the airport attack. There are roughly 5,000 US troops at Kabul's airport, helping to evacuate American citizens, at-risk Afghans and other nationalities before Biden's Tuesday deadline.
National security team is warning that another terrorist attack in Kabul is, quote, likely. Pentagon officials also saying there are, quote, specific and credible threats of even more attacks around the Kabul airport. These warnings come a day after a suicide bombing killed 13 U.S. service members and scores of Afghans. Amid that stern alert today, the airlift of remaining Americans and Afghans trying to flee the country presses on. President Biden maintains that the U.S. will hunt down those responsible for the bombing as he sticks to his self-imposed withdrawal deadline 4 days away.
The person who assassinated Robert F. Kennedy Jr. back in 1968 when he was running for the Democratic primary for president has been granted parole. His name is Sirhan Sirhan. He was 24 years old at the time when he shot Robert F. Kennedy at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, throwing the country into turmoil. Yet another Kennedy brother gunned down. He was a vehement anti-Zionist. He was a Palestinian Arab. He said in later interviews that he assassinated Robert F. Kennedy for the sole fact that he supported Israel. And so right now this will go to the California governor's office for review. He's been up for parole 16 times. This is the first time it has been granted. Interesting to note, Christy, that two of RFK Jr.'s sons spoke in favor of this decision today.
It was one of the strictest lockdowns in the world. Security forces were deployed on the streets of Argentina to prevent the spread of COVID-19. But a series of videos that have just been revealed show President Alberto Fernandez and his wife, Fabiola Yáñez, were not respecting it. Now a prosecutor in Argentina has accused President Fernandez of breaking the quarantine and celebrating a party at the presidential residence.
The president is an expert in lying. He said there were no parties. When the picture appeared, they said it was a fake. The second picture, they admitted there was a party, and then he blamed his wife for the party. Every day he changes his version.
73 legislators in favor and 50 against. A cabinet approved but plagued with questions, lack of experience, allegations of corruption, and Prime Minister Guido Bellido accused of making a so-called apology for terrorism by appearing to support the Shining Path extremist group. It put off even some of the moderates. Legislators shouted at Bellido for making remarks in the indigenous Quechua language, even though he was calling for a new start. The newly inaugurated leftist government will now focus on Peruvians left behind. Bellido says the priority will be to tackle the pandemic that's left nearly 200,000 Peruvians dead and 30% of the country in poverty.
Eteni Longondo, Congo's former Minister of Health, seen here getting vaccinated for COVID-19 4 months ago, was arrested Friday following allegations he misappropriated more than $1 million in funds allocated by the World Bank to fight the pandemic. Longondo appeared in court in Kinshasa before being driven to the Makala Central Prison late Friday. The alleged acts of mismanagement came to light during investigations carried out by the Ministry of Health and the Central Bank. At a news conference on Wednesday, Longondo had sharply denied the allegations. He was fired as minister in April after his appointment in 2019. Longondo's predecessor, Oli Ilunga, was convicted of embezzling funds meant for the Ebola response and sentenced to 5 years in prison.